What's going on, everybody? We are back after a hiatus that at first felt good and now feels like forever. We finally got UFC coming back this weekend. We got UFC Vegas 67. This is the Club and Sub podcast. In case you forgot, we got episode number 119. Yeah, as usual, we got Lags at Danny_Lags, myself, John at MMA Fox. If you like the show, guys, drop a like and subscribe. Obviously, if you saw the message from the Club and Sub official Twitter earlier, some going on here, some housekeeping items to get out of the way. Luke got a lucrative offer, no pun intended, to join Daily Fan MMA with Brett Apley, good crew over there. So he will be doing that full time now. And so the Club and Sub Cobcast now is down to me and Lags. Obviously, a couple years back, we started with 6 people for a couple shows and have now gradually worked our way down to 2. C has actually expressed some interest in doing shows, so we'll see. He may be coming in on and off. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, you're going to have me and Danny doing it. Obviously, it's a bummer to lose Luke. We wish him all the best. Going to pour one out for him right now. He was a very sharp guy, helped the pod a lot over the last couple years. Fortunately, the pod's been profitable every year, including if you combine Danny and I's record every year. So we're hoping to do it again. And of the one nice thing to take away from this is it does provide us a bit more flexibility, guys. Over the last couple years, we've had guests here and there, but we've been kind of skittish about doing it because obviously our shows tend to run long anyway with, 3 people, and adding a 4th is always kind of a mess. So now it's the 2 of us. We'll be having guests on a bit more frequently. We'll be doing, every pay-per-view we'll have someone on, maybe some in between. Someone suggested a crossover with Andrew Magic. That'll definitely happen. I actually already mentioned that to Gambas today. So yeah, a lot of good things to keep out for. Last year was profitable for everybody on the pod. This pod's been profitable 3 years in a row. We're going to keep the train running, and we got an interesting card to jump into to do it with. What are your thoughts here, Dan, top to bottom?
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing that I really – it's nice having, MMA back again, UFC back again, but, it's kind of a stinker of a card for betting, at least in my opinion. So we'll get into it for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a – I don't disagree. I have one official bet. I'm probably going to bet at least 2 more spots, maybe a couple totals. You will see. Obviously, we'll talk about them here. But I think entertainment-wise, it's a decent card to get us back off on the right foot. Any thoughts on the main event swap out entertainment-wise? I can't decide if I think this is a more. I have thoughts that we'll get to on the fight versus the other fight, but I can't decide if I think this is more fun or not. What do you think?
I'd for sure have to say it's a more fun fight. I love Strickland main events. I love Strickland in general as a person, as a fighter. Great fights. So I like to swap up. I'm not a big Kelvin fan personally, so it is what it is.
Yeah, but Kelvin brings firefights out of people, so we'll see. Sean does too, so we'll get to that. First, though, we're gonna jump right in here. We got my girl Sijara Eubanks taking on zombie girl Priscilla Cachoeira. People are gonna tell you this week you can't trust Sijara Eubanks at G's. It's gonna be something you hear quite often. She's gassy. She's not trustworthy. How could you ever lay minus 200? And to those people, I say you're wrong. I bet Sijara Eubanks here for 3 units at minus 200. I honestly think the line where it is has plenty of value left on it. The most common theme I've heard here is take a look at catch round 3, as if Sijara's cardio and Cachoeira late finishes aren't already baked into the line. They obviously are, but that's all I keep hearing is, oh, what if Catch survives? She could come on late. And it's maybe she could come on late in this fight. But here's the reality. Sijara Eubanks, yeah, she's had issues down the stretch in fights, throughout her career, but they've all been against top talent. This is not a woman who's going out there and losing to shitters. You look at her last 3 losses. Ketlin Vieira, very close fight. She won round 3 there. Pani Kianzad, very close fight. Round 3 was competitive. And Melissa Gatto, who, I've seen people draw this fight in comparison to that. But grappling with Melissa Gatto on bottom is like wrestling with a shark, whereas grappling with Priscilla Cachoeira on bottom is like grappling with a dead body. I don't know how else to put it here. Eubanks she's had her issues over the years, but this woman dumpstered Julia Avila, dumpstered Roxanne Modafferi, dumpstered Lauren Murphy. She's only lost to top level fighters. And when you look at the women that she's fought at Priscilla's level of grappling, she's finished pretty much all of them. Elise Reed finished her in round 1. Maya Kanoeli finished her in round 2 with a submission. Amberlyn Orr finished her in round 1 on the mat. Gina Elliott finished her in round 1. Every other woman that she's fought in her career is a reasonably good grappler. And she's out-grappled most of them. So I hear people say Jillian Robertson is a better grappler than Sijara Eubanks, and it's just like, are you crazy? Jillian Robertson's a very good grappler when she's on top. Sijara Eubanks is legitimately a world champion in jiu-jitsu, like won a gold medal at the world championships, won 2 silver medals there. She's the better boxer. She's fought way better competition. I respect everything that Zombie Girl brings to the table. She's a tough woman. She's going to come forward. She's willing to eat shots to give them. But the reality is she has no technical acumen anywhere, including on the feet. She just hits hard. And on the mat, she's a disaster. Throw the Shevchenko fight out, but she got grappled by Luana Carolina. She got grappled by Molly McCann. She looked like a fish on the mat against Jillian Robertson. I just kind of think with this dynamic, Eubanks could gas out here and still hit takedowns down the stretch and dominate her on the mat. It's not as if Sijara is someone who's getting dropped every fight. She got put out with a body kick last fight. Other than that, she's never gotten dropped in her career. I think the line should be near minus 400. Lags, I know you have another angle that I agree with, so I'll throw it to you. You spit it out. What do you got?
So, yeah, biggest play on the card so far, and it's 2 units on the under 2.5 rounds, minus 160. Like you touched on a little bit with Sijara Eubanks. I think she dominates in the wrestling here. Absolutely dominates and can dominate to an early finish here. But this fight is at 125. She's struggled to make that weight before. She's had cardio issues like you touched on in the past. Again, could catch her late, but I think Sarge dominates her to a finish on the mat early. I like the under 2.5 here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You just look at how easy Priscilla gets past. I mean, she's going to get to dominant positions pretty much right away. I mean, it's kind of a hot take thrown out a minus 150 under on a female fight, but the truth is, if Sarge fights intelligently here, she should finish her. And even if they bang it out, I think I said it in our chat earlier, but even if they bang it out standing, Sijara hits pretty hard for a woman. Like if they're standing, they're going to be slugging bombs. Priscilla has 0 defense. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of like the under as well. I also like Eubanks KO plus 550, I think is somewhat attractive. So yeah, I like the under as well. Moving on though, kind of go from, a really passionate fight to now a couple fights here where I'm not super passionate. We got Jimmy Flick, Charles Johnson. Any thoughts here, Legs?
No, other than, this is not a, betting scandal at all. This is, there were a lot of, sharp people that got on with, great odds, early limits. And yeah, I think Johnson should be this big of a favorite really, because I think Flick is that round 1 sub guy really, to be honest with you. I don't think his cardio is any good. I think he's a horrible nail and, add narrative into the soup, obviously. 2 years coming off of a retirement injury. He had some injury concern before the retirement. But yeah, no, I think Johnson dominates on the feet. He's a good defensive submission grappler. I think it's a good fight for Johnson.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, if you guys don't know what Lags was referencing, James Lynch put out a video claiming that this could be another UFC betting scandal because of the way the line moved. I don't know how much research he actually put into that video. Probably not much. Either that or he's just not familiar with betting markets. But to my understanding, I don't have BetOnline available to me because I'm in New Jersey. But to my understanding, BetOnline actually opened limits up on this fight around 5K, which meant people could get down substantial amounts of money early. So you saw the line, which opened even, shoot out. But, it was always a ludicrous take that this was a betting scandal. And even more funny now that it's gone from minus 500 all the way back to minus 300. In terms of the fight itself, I more or less agree with you. I mean, Johnson's takedownable enough that it's like, would I want to have, a 75% implied ticket on him? Like, not really, because Flick could get him down early and potentially get to a dominant position and sub him. But I agree. Johnson showed enough to me against Mokaev that I think he should be able to get up. And I have this feeling from Flick's tape that he's a quitter, to be honest. And I don't like saying that lightly because obviously these guys are banging out in the cage. And my pussy ass is sitting here behind a microphone, and behind my computer talking to you guys. But the truth is, we've seen Flick kind of cave to adversity a number of times in his career when he's lost. And I kind of think that's likely what could happen here if he can't have the success he needs early in this fight. I was interested in the under at early prices, but Minus 185. Wait, what do you
Oh,
think, Vibes?
I thought you were gonna really move her on the under.
No,
I saw you
no.
mention. Saw you mentioning. I thought you actually grabbed the under when it was at the ad opener. No, okay,
I
no,
didn't have any limits on it.
current pricing. I don't have a ton of interest. What are all the inside distance props and whatnot? Yeah, Johnson KO plus 110. Like no.
Yeah,
I would much rather.
it's
I
just
would much
not
rather
enough.
sweat. I would much rather sweat Johnson decision plus 300 if I had to sweat anything in that fight. In this fight.
Yeah, and I guess it could turn into something messy where Flick's trying to shoot on him and he just kind of reverses him into top position and holds him down. Yeah, I agree. No need to sweat this fight though. First card back of the year.
I will say this though. Even though we were talking about the under a little bit, and I was looking at the alternate over 1.5. That's a little bit interesting. It's minus 125, and I think most of that early danger is a Flick sub, which, like I said, don't think is too live personally. But
minus 125 is interesting because Flick's best round should be early, right? I mean, he made it to like late round 2 or round 3, I believe, with Chris Gutierrez. So it's not crazy that he could get there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to play it if you were going to do anything with it. But yeah, no strong takes.
Moving on, a fight that I don't really have much of an opinion on. We got Daniel Argueta, Nick Aguirre. Aguirre, very, very short notice replacement here. I did some very, very brief tape on it. I was interested in Argueta against Isaac Dolgarian, and I'm not particularly high on Argueta at all. Aguirre just seems like a regional shitter who's been fighting cans, and yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to say. Argueta's like minus 700 here. I'm not laying that price. You know, even like from what I saw, what's fight doesn't go here. It's heavy, right?
225.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not overly interested in this fight at all. Argueta should roll. I'll be more interested when he fights, hopefully, Dolgarian again or another decent fighter. Any thoughts from you?
No, I didn't get a chance to do any tape on the new guy, quite frankly.
All right, well, I'll start you off here then. Nascimento taking on Carlos Hernandez. What are your thoughts?
We'll talk about a little bit like what you mentioned in the Johnson fight, just a guy you wouldn't want to really lay, minus 400 on just because of, he does play guard a bit, but I do think Nascimento has advantages pretty much everywhere in this fight. He's a little bit of a better striker. The dude's massive for the division, huge physical athlete. I think he's going to be tough to take down. I don't think Hernandez's wrestling is that great. But again, just another fight I'm not trying to lay minus 330 on him.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed about this because when I saw the booking, I remember everyone was like super high on Hernandez when he fought Altamirano, and I was kind of hoping we'd have a reasonable price here on Nascimento because I agree with most of your takes here. I mean, I think the striking is competitive. I agree Nascimento offers more, but he also is very available to hit. In the grappling, I guess, I mean, Nascimento is clearly the better grappler, but to your point, I do think Hernandez could potentially take him down, and then it's like, well, Nascimento could sweep him and dominate. I think that's more likely than not, or he could just do Nascimento things and just try to throw up subs off his back and lose minutes. So with that dynamic, it's like, how can you lay a huge number on him here? With that said, though, like you said, he's big. He's the better athlete. He's fought much better competition. He really should cruise here. I just don't have really any interest at all in the price. Moving on, though, good fight here. Marius Mendonca, he's coming off a victory over Regime Majik, who I bet in the Contender Series. He's taking on Javid Basharat. I'll be honest, like you guys know, I'm not much for being a juice chaser in general. The line's getting to a point where I'm thinking about playing Basharat, which is kind of funny because I've bet against Basharat in his last 2 fights, which maybe should tell me that I shouldn't bet on him here because if I've been down on him, why am I turning around and now laying minus 300? But the truth is, I look at Mendonca's tape and I just don't see a lot that blows my hair back, if I'm being completely honest. The guy's, he hits hard, but he lacks defense. He can be low volume. He can be gassy in the grappling. Like, he's got an okay sub game, but he's easy to put on his back and he can get stuck there. And so it's like Basharat, I still have a lot of the same concerns I've had about him. In particular, I would like his defense to be a lot better than where it is, but he seems very durable. He's obviously a good athlete. He's high output. He's a very good grappler. I bet Tony Gravely pretty big against him, and I was extremely impressed with how well he dealt with Gravely's takedowns in that fight. So I think he can win this fight really however he wants. If he wants to grapple him, he can. If he needs to, I think he should just have the volume and just technical acumen on the feet to handle him fairly easily. I put him, honestly, I hate laying prices like this, but like I have Basharat like minus 400. If this dips below minus 300, I'm probably going to take a piece. I think the under is kind of interesting at minus 110. Like, what do you think, Legs?
So yeah, nothing really to counteract it, to be completely honest with you, I guess. I mean, I don't think Mendonca is that great. Again, power is probably the only good attribute of his game. Poor defensive grappler. Cardio is a bit questionable. Defensively, he's a bit hittable. I mean, I think this Javicia Cruz standing, Cruz in the grappling. I mean, I think he's a good parlay piece this week.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like Mendonca has to bonk him here, right?
Yeah.
To win this fight.
Yeah.
I'd have a hard time imagining him subbing him or winning a decision here. Yeah, so. But we'll see. We will see. Moving on, I'll start with you, Lags. Another kind of ugly fight here. Marius Rebecki taking on Nick Fiore. What are your thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, I think it's an ugly fight. I mean, I know a lot of people were just basically talking about the over, the under, basically how fast he kills him. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of concerns with Rebecki in general, like with his hittable nature. I think in general, his striking, it's not pretty to me. Like it's just a lot of just setting up the overhand, and that's kind of it, just to close the space. But his grappling is very good, in my opinion. I think this should be a walk in the park, and I lean the under, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. It should be a walk in the park. It's interesting because like Fiore, I do think has some interesting tools in the jiu-jitsu realm, but I'm actually reasonably high on Rebecki, and like, you know me, I'm never high on guys making their debut, but he kind of reminds me of Marab to a degree in that he's got good cardio and he basically pursues takedowns nonstop. It's like whether you're even good at them is almost irrelevant if you're strong and a good athlete and you have the cardio to pursue them. Like it's just a cheat code to win fights in the UFC, you know? And Rebecki is that guy, and he actually is a decent wrestler. So I think he should cruise here.
And he's a pretty solid finisher as well.
He is. And the big concern is really if he gets stuck standing, but I can't really imagine Fiore keeping this on the feet, to be honest. I told you, I kind of leaned the other way, like to the over, just because Fiore is a jiu-jitsu guy. So it's like maybe he can consolidate guard and just ride him out. But it's like short notice against, like a wrecking ball like Rebecki. It's like, do I really want to sweat out Rebecki just smashing him with ground and pound for 7.5 minutes? Like, not really. Honestly, I think the number's fine. I've seen some people make the case that it's not. And if it turns out that Rebecki's got way worse jiu-jitsu than we think, then sure. But I kind of suspect he's going to be able to float on top without much issues. Moving on. Very good fight here. A very interesting fight. And I have a somewhat passionate take here, and I will eventually be making a bet. We got Abdul Razak Alhassan taking on Claudio Ribeiro. I like Alhassan quite a bit in this fight, to be honest. It's kind of funny because I'm going to give you guys the opposite take about level of competition in a couple of fights, which I don't often do, but I'm going to. But in this fight, it's just like I faded Claudio Ribeiro on Contender Series. To me, you watch this guy's tape, and look, he's a big guy, he's explosive, and he hits very hard. Maybe he's the kind of guy who could get dumpstered in this fight, or he could knock out 3 straight guys like Johnny Walker, and everybody gets super hyped up until he fights a technical wrestler who makes him look like a clown. I just, even though he's explosive and he hits super hard, I just don't think he's very good at anything. I don't think he really has the tools to play an outside game and actually effectively use that height and that length against Alhassan here. In terms of in the pocket, I think Alhassan's just a much, much, much better boxer than Ribeiro is. His shots are straighter. He throws in combination better. He moves his head better. Ribeiro just very, very available to get hit. Honestly, do I expect him to go to it? I mean, he did against Buckley, but he doesn't usually. But Alhassan could honestly just grapple fuck him for 15 minutes here relatively easily. I don't think Ribeiro provides much resistance. And honestly, most of the time, the concern with Alhassan, if he grapples, is he's going to gas out. I actually kind of think he has a better gas tank here. I've seen Ribeiro gas out 2.5 minutes into fights before. So it's like you put all those things together. Like the tape to me screams Alhassan is the better fighter. You look at the guys they fought. Ribeiro's fought nobodies. Alhassan, he's been in the UFC forever. He's fought some real guys in the UFC. He's beaten some real guys in the UFC. I just kind of feel like, the biggest thing that's like keeping me from making this like a huge bet is Alhassan's 37, Ribeiro's 30. But ultimately, I do think Alhassan is the much better technician everywhere. I think he's got a big grappling edge if he wants it. He probably won't. He's probably going to bang it out because we can't have good things. But I think he can win the slug it out fight. Alhassan's a huge hitter, and I think he's actually might be faster than Ribeiro. So I don't know. To me, you got to make Alhassan at least minus 150 in this spot. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to have a decent sized bet on him. What do you think?
I think it's a high volatile fight for starters. No doubt about it. Obviously, both these guys carry huge power. But at least for my money's worth, I would say the Razak has slight advantages in durability, cardio, and strength schedule. So, yeah, I get the points, John. But for me, it's a high volatile fight, so I'm totally fine with passing here.
Yeah, and like I could see Ribeiro just
nuking him.
Like if you told me tomorrow Ribeiro's going to knock him out in round 1, I'm not surprised. Like to me, that is very likely how Ribeiro wins this fight. It's a round 1 KO. If it goes past the first round, I kind of think once Razak gets reads on him, he's just going to pick him apart, to be honest. But yeah, wouldn't be surprising. And it is highly, what's the, ITD's got to be huge here, right?
Minus 700.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Actually on FanDuel, so get this. FanDuel, they have the doesn't go at minus 1,300.
What?
Yeah.
What's the go?
Plus 630.
Dude, I said this to you this week, and you kind of poo-pooed it, but the number was a lot different when I said this to you. But in Razak Alhassan's last 9 fights in the UFC, 4 of them have gone the distance. And it is not as if he's been in there with like cupcake-type guys. Munir Lazez went to a decision with him. Joaquin Buckley went to a decision with him. Went to a decision with Omari Akhmedov. Like, do I expect it to go the distance? No, I think someone dies. I do, but what's the over 1.5?
Well, that's another thing I was just going to mention to do. I think a good way you could ladder this is starts round 2 and then starts round 3. So starts round 2 is plus 130 on FanDuel, and then starts round 3 is plus 310.
Plus 130 starts round 2?
Yeah.
I feel like if it starts round 2, it's probably going to start round 3.
So the over 1.5 is plus 1. So the over 1.5 is plus 180.
I think I'd rather just have goes the distance at that point.
Yeah.
Plus 630?
Yeah, plus 630. Yeah.
I think I'm going to like that. That is insane. Like that's, dude, how many, we saw Khalil Roundtree and Marcin Prochnio find a way to go 3 rounds. Like you're telling me that this is like 13% implied to go 3 rounds? That's crazy. And again, to be clear, guys, I think someone dies. I do think someone is going to die and very quickly, but that's
John Alhassan by decision plus 1,100.
He just went to a draw with Joaquin Buckley. Yeah, I agree with Pepe. Like, I kind of think if they clear round 1 here, it's like, I would say it's like 55% to end in round 1. And if it gets like through that, it's probably like 20%, 25% to finish the rest of the way. Yeah, I think it's worth a sprinkle. That's kind of insane, to be honest. But anyway, moving on. We're going to talk about, I think, something a lot of people are talking about this week. We got Umar Nurmagomedov. He's taking on Raoni Barcelos. The line's big. The line is quite big. We got Umar Nurmagomedov is minus 1,000. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
First off, I'm hoping this is not a betting scandal and we're not seeing any fishy shit, because I do plan on getting invested here because, how do we have Raoni at 13% implied here? The dude's a solid defensive grappler. The dude's a good boxer, good cardio. Umar would have to absolutely dumpster him bell to bell in the grappling. to justify this line, in my opinion. So betting on
does
Haoney,
that even justify the line?
I think, yeah, no. I mean, I guess fair point. Yeah, I mean, you have a fair point. Yeah.
Like, what if he gets swept? What if he gets clipped? Like, you know, like 90% is an enormous number.
Yeah, and that's the thing people need to realize as well. Like on the opposite side, if you're betting on Haoney, not much needs to go right for you to even look like you made a decent bet. Whereas a lot can go wrong at 90% implied for you to be wrong. So, yeah.
So are you betting it?
Oh, I'm betting Haoney. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just looking at this earlier today, and I wonder. So Haoney, the fight after he beat, so he went off as a minus 550 favorite against Chris Gutierrez. Pretty good fighter. And then in his next fight went off as a minus 1100 favorite against Carlos Quiroz. Is he like the first fighter in history to be minus 1,000 and then be on the other side of a plus 1,000? Like this is it's pretty fucking wild. I guess my thoughts are, first of all, it's a smaller weight class, right? So it's like as dominant as Umar's been. How many guys have we seen in the history of bantamweight that can just, or flyweight, or even featherweight to a degree, that can just blanket guys? The truth of the matter is the degree of athleticism at these weight classes is such that it's just very hard to hold guys down. Like it's not like heavyweight where it's like you get someone like Derek Lewis flat on their back, like they're not going anywhere, you know? And Haoney, he is a very good wrestler. You know, one of the issues I had going through tape here was finding a lot of places where Haoney ended up on his back, just because it just hasn't really happened often in the UFC. And, you know, something that stuck out was going back to his fight with Mark Dickman, which was 8 years ago. So again, it's a question of like how much relevance can you put into a fight that happened when he was 26 years old? It's hard to know because he's certainly gotten better since then. But that was an interesting fight. Mark Dickman was a 4-time NAIA All-American, NAIA national champion, very good wrestler, brown belt. And that fight, you know, the early portion of it, he tries relentlessly to take Haoney down in round one, gets badly out-grappled, gets all the takedown stuff, ends up on bottom, gets beaten up. Round two starts. He eventually hits a takedown. Haoney gives up his back to try to get up right away, gets hooks in, submits him. On the one hand, watching that fight, I was like, oh, Haoney's got really good hips. You can see it. The guy knows what he's doing defending takedowns. You're not just going to, you know, he's not going to keel over. The other side of it is, yeah, I like the fact that he doesn't accept bottom position, but if he gives up his back to brother Umar, bad things are very likely to follow. Now, again, 8 years ago, he's probably improved a good bit since then. He's clearly got great hips. You'll look at Umar and Brian Kelleher, you know, Umar subbed him quick, but he went 1 for 5 on takedowns there. It's not like he just got him out of there immediately. And I don't know how much relevance it has, but it's like Mario Batista did the exact same thing that Brian Kelleher that Umar did. So it's like, how much stock should I put in that fight? Nate Manis, you know, Nate Manis got owned by Umar. Nate Manis just got owned by Tagir Ulanbekov, who lost to Tim Elliott, who I like. But again, like the point is, you know, he is dominating guys, but like the last time he took on a really good grappler was Sadykhov Kakramanov. Good fight. Umar won clear, but it was a close fight. Sadykhov gave him hell. He did not have an easy time taking him down there. Couldn't control him. On the feet was fairly competitive. And he's clearly gotten better since then. So it's like, on the one hand, I kind of think it's very likely that he can probably get takedowns here at some point. But on the other hand, you know, he struggled to get Sadykhov down. He struggled with his physicality a bit. And again, this is kind of wiki capping. So like, don't all shoot me. I'm saying it before I get into it a bit, but you watch Sadykov's fight with Trevin Jones, right? Trevin Jones, strong as an ox. Dude was able to get 8.5 minutes of clinch control, just kind of pressing him up against the fence. Well, Trevin Jones just took on Haoney Barcelos, who just completely bullied him. So it's like Umar struggled a bit with Sadykov's physicality. We know Haoney has at least a commensurate amount of physicality that he does. I don't know. I don't really think it's a lock Umar gets takedowns here. He probably gets a couple, but I don't think it's a lock he blankets him. And he might blanket him. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying I don't think it's it's certainly not as likely as the market's implying. And on the feet, I think Umar can win on the feet because you look at Hayoni's career, he has struggled a bit with those guys who play the outside kicking game. Valiev, Nurmagomedov, even Chris Gutierrez has outlanded him at distance a bit just by kind of hanging on the outside. But it's a small cage. If they get in the pocket, I'm pretty positive Hayoni's the better pocket boxer. And at the end of the day, he's just fought much better competition than Umar has. So it's like, as you said, Lags, you put it more eloquently than me, who just took like a 5-minute road around, getting to the point that you just made.
It's okay. It's okay, John. You're
good. But, how wrong can you be at plus 700? It's like, if it turns out he can keep the fight upright, or let's say can keep the fight on the feet for 9 minutes out of 15 and gets controlled for 6 minutes or 7 minutes. Well, you've already basically covered your price there. Like if he gets 8 minutes standing with Umar, you're covering your price. Like Hayoni can hit for 135. He's a very dangerous striker. What happened? There's just, I don't know. When I taped this, I was kind of expecting Umar to be in the minus 250, 300 range. I had capped Hayoni about plus 200. I capped Umar minus 200, obviously, but I just felt like, and I still feel like the dominant upside in this fight is on the Umar side for sure. But also, like, whether or not Umar can dominate seems like a huge question. And I know he can't dominate standing. So, yeah, all that is to say, I'm going to bet Hayoni. How big are you going on it? Because, like, this is what I can't decide.
So, for me, it's more just a 1 unit just because of I would say just like the pass in general I see for Hayoni. Like, in general, I see it being a close fight. If he is able to stuff those takedowns, I see it being a close fight on the feet.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could argue that, maybe at a massive number I should be going bigger, but I just don't have that supreme degree of confidence, I guess.
It's kind of something I've gone back and forth with a bit. I know you remember, but Luke and I had this argument in our group chat last year over the Jared Gordon fight when he was like, how can you go 5 units on Jared Gordon? I was like, well, I'm confident he should be a favorite. Obviously that bit me in the ass, but it's like, I'm obviously not confident Hayoni should be, but I kind of go back and forth. It's like, yeah, I cap him a decent sized dog, but I think you're getting 15 to 20% on the implied odds at the number. So it's like, should I be going big on him, or does he not cover the number enough to really justify it? And I don't know. I think I'm probably going to settle in near the 2 unit range. We'll see what happens. We're probably going to lose, but I kind of feel like it's got to be done.
It's just one of those you have. It's just one of those you have to. I don't know. People shame us here and there, but like it's just like you have to play basic percentages,
So like let's look at like handicapping other professional sports. When people are making a model to handicap NFL or NBA, they're using a power rankings, and a lot of times lines are scaled based on how would a fighter be lined, or not a fighter, a team be lined against the best team. And it's like, having a minus, having a minus 1,000 on Umar against Hayoni is basically, to me, implying he'd be a favorite over everybody in the division. And like, not just a small favorite, like at least a slight to moderate favorite against, Aljo and Peter Yan. And to me, that's crazy. Like
it's a big question. That's a huge question mark.
I mean, would you favor him if he fought Aljo tomorrow? Would you favor Umar against him?
No.
Would you favor him against Peter Yan?
No.
Like that's like would you make Yan more than minus 400 or 500 against Hayoni?
No.
Right. Exactly. Like that's my point.
I think just to get to minus 1,000, there's a lot of hoops you need to go through, and they're just not there. It's not there in the tape, in my opinion.
Unless there's some serious fuckery here. I saw Gugabe say he was going to wait till weigh-ins, and I don't think that's a bad idea. Just see whether or not Hayoni's got like AIDS, before you decide to actually deploy money on this fight. But I just can't. It just doesn't make any sense. So
the last thing I'll add. I guess we'll talk about the sizing and whatnot. For me, as well as like when you were talking about like the edge you're getting, like because I said you capped him at like plus 200, you're getting the plus 650. For me as well, adding that in the method of victory as well. Like I said, like I think it's just a close fight at the end of the day. Like, where are your paths for Hayoni? So that's why. Right, KO. and that's why for me, I think it's a close. Like I wouldn't go huge on the dog, even though you're getting such a big edge.
Yeah,
just given the balance. But yeah,
no, I think it's fair. And like honestly, like if you were to use like say the Kelly criterion, like that would not. It would tell you to go like small to moderate size bet.
Right.
Would not be advocating for a big bet. So that's probably what I'll do. 1 to 2 units. We'll see where it settles. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm shocked, but I'm excited. Moving on, we got Ketlin Vieira. She's taking on Raquel Pennington. I don't have a bet here, but I don't know. Everybody keeps talking about how it's a lock to be a split, and I'm starting to get tempted by the Pennington side, to be honest. I kind of think Ketlin is one of the most consistently overvalued fighters in the UFC, and I think it's in part because she had so much hype around her, in her run-up. People were talking about her when she came into the UFC, like she was going to be the one to dethrone Amanda. But like you look at her fight, and I don't know. I don't really get, what people are seeing that kind of continues to justify the prices she's getting. Like, I didn't think the home fight was a stone cold robbery, but I thought Holly won the fight. What really concerns me is you go 2 fights before that. She fights Miesha Tate. I bet Ketlin in there fight pretty big. I mean, Ketlin has a competitive striking fight with Miesha Tate. Like, it really? Like that is not. I mean, look at what Lauren Murphy just did to Miesha Tate. Bravo to you, Lags. But like, look at what Lauren Murphy just did to her on the feet. I don't really get that. And then it's like you go to the Sajara fight. She was losing on the feet to Eubanks. Very close fight. The Yana fight, she gassed out horribly. She obviously got KO'd by Aldana. She just, to me, hasn't really ever lived up to the prices she's getting. And now she's fighting Rocky. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Rocky's like oatmeal, Like, no one's excited about Rocky Pennington fighting. She's not a super dangerous finisher, but Rocky's fought like everybody in the entire division. And she fights, other than Amanda Nunes and I guess Holly, but she fights competitive with everybody. She beat Ladd pretty handily. She beat Macy Chiasson pretty handily. She beat Panny pretty handily. And so I look at this fight. I think Rocky's the better boxer. I think she's the better striker, period. Ketlin's more dangerous with her hands, but I just think Rocky's a lot more technical. In the grappling, look, Ketlin's obviously a better wrestler. She's probably got better jiu-jitsu, but Rocky can get off her back, Rocky can cage push her. We've seen Ketlin cage push by everybody. While Ketlin can hit takedowns, it's like one of these things where it's like if Ketlin ends up on bottom, she can't get off her back. Ketlin plays guard and doesn't play it very effectively, if we're being honest. And so it's like Rocky's fought better women. She's beaten better women. I think she's the better striker. I think she's 2 slips from Ketlin away from just winning this fight. So I don't know. Like, to me, I think, like, I wouldn't make her a big favorite or anything like that, but I think Rocky like 55, 60% makes sense personally. What do you think?
I think this is a bit of a cage pushy mess, to be honest.
And most likely. It most likely is, yeah.
And that's why I think that people shouldn't have a ton of confidence really on either side. I mean, I get your take from the Rocky side because she fought everybody, strength of schedule, obviously better boxer, can likely hold her own in the grappling, but I just see it as a close fight at the end of the day. So not a ton of stock myself.
Yeah. I get that take. And like I said, everybody's talking about it like it's a lock to be a split. And I wouldn't be surprised by a split, obviously. I'm just saying, I feel like if one fighter wins this 30-27, I feel like it's much more likely to end up being Rocky ending up on top, like 2 rounds and like riding her out, than Ketlin like dominating Rocky. I would be very surprised if either one dominated, but like if Rocky got 2 clear rounds because she gets 3 to 4 minutes on top, I'm not really surprised by that, So we'll see. But I lean the Pennington side. If the line keeps moving, I'm going to play it. Moving on. Interesting fight here. We got Punahele Soriano. He's taking on Roman Kopylov. I've seen some passionate opinions on both sides of this fight this week. Lags, do you have a passionate opinion?
No, but I don't know why to me, but Soriano just seems like that. And not to like poke fun at anybody really, but he just seems like that square better's like dream really. Like he hits hard, he looks good, he's physical athlete in that, but like the volume's not there, cardio's not there. Defensively, he's a bit of a mess. And I get it, like Kopylov is just not much himself, but like I don't know. I don't have a ton of strong takes here. Like I think where it's at, it's fine based off the finishing potential, big moment upside for Puna. I think he has some grappling upside, but like I'm mentioning now, the grappling upside, he's probably not going to go to it because he gasses out trying to. So yeah, I don't know. I think this fight's a mess.
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to bet it, to be honest. I've considered betting Soriano, and I agree with everything you just said about him. I've obviously never been the highest on Puna Soriano, but it is one of those fights where, okay, like Kopylov is never historic. Like he was higher volume last fight against the Kiriko, but it's not like he was like crazy high volume. I think he landed 60 significant strikes across the fight. Like that's not the kind of volume that like Puna can't keep up with. So like if you look at it on the feet, I would probably lean Kopylov technically, but I think Puna's, he hits harder, obviously. So I think he's got moment upside. In my opinion, and if you disagree, let me know. But in my opinion, he's far more likely to knock Kopylov out than the other way around. So it's like even on the feet, at worst, I think it's a wash to maybe slight fave Puna. And then it's just like, yeah, Soriano fights really dumb. But if he decides to use his brain one time here, he has like a minus 400 path there. I know he's a gasser. I know he isn't intelligent. Kopylov is a tragedy, a Shakespearean tragedy on the mat. Like this guy cannot grapple. I am telling you, like if Soriano just comes out there and shoots a double out the gate, he's going to get on top of him. I saw Liam mention it the other day, but like Soriano on his Instagram, he's looking pretty swole. He really is. He looks like he's in good shape and he's taking it seriously. I don't know whether we should put any stock into that. I don't usually, but, and again, like I agree with all your points about Soriano, but like I look at it and it's like, what's the optimal outcome here for Kopylov if we hindsight line it? That Soriano doesn't wrestle at all and he volumes him, maybe knocks him out late in the fight, but whereas he could lose that kind of fight, right? If they just stand, Kopylov could lose a decision, right? On volume or power shots or get knocked out. Whereas if Soriano uses his brain, he's not going to lose this fight. So it's like, I keep thinking about it. I'm like, I don't want to bet Soriano, but the more I think about it, it's just like with all of those, like that soup together, it's like how 60% implies a very, very close fight. And like, yes, it could very well play out that way. I wouldn't be shocked if it plays out that way, but the only guy in this fight with dominant upside is Soriano in terms of it winning a decision. And the only guy in this fight, or not the only guy, but Soriano also has far more finishing equity. Like that usually is a recipe for like minus 200, minus 250, not minus 150. So I don't know. Tell me if you disagree. I've been thinking about it. Like it makes me physically ill, like thinking about betting juice on like Puna, but I mean, what do you think?
I said it toward the end of the year, but I'm not betting fighters with bad IQ. I said it before. I'm trying not to do it. And Puna falls in that category, absolutely, like you touched on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. And don't get me wrong. Everybody betting Puna, like he could absolutely just starch him easily. He's got the bigger power for sure. But like,
or it could just be the picket fight.
It could be a close fight. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I might bet him. I'm thinking about it. It really. We'll see.
I'd rather move it on. I like the people. Honestly, I real quick on that fight. The no scorecards take for like 20 cents more on the line. I don't think Kopilov's at finishing him at that much of a higher clip. So I think I'd rather go back to the money line if I was doing that. But yeah.
Yeah, no scorecards is probably better. What did you say the price is?
I want to say here. I'll look it up for you right now. I want to say I saw
minus 175. That's pretty good.
That's what it was before. And let me see.
What's his subline? Like, I know he's not a submission grappler, but I kind of feel like he could probably sub Kopylov if he really wanted. 1,200. Wow, that's a huge price.
Yeah. DK, it's 900.
900. Yeah, it doesn't look like 1,200 anywhere you can get liquidity down. But
yeah, that's still a pretty good price. Finish only is minus 175
though. Yeah, moving on. We got Dan Ige taking on David Jackson. As I mentioned earlier, I like to be the guy that talks about level of competition a lot. This is going to be like one of those fights where I'm kind of going against, my own rules here a bit. And it's an interesting fight because I think both guys are in the process of being repriced by the market. And that's something you have to remember. At the end of the day, yeah, we're taping fights. We're talking about how fighters match up with each other. But just like with stocks or crypto or Forex or oil, whatever you want to talk about, it's a market like any other here. Lines are based on what people bet. and markets can take time to reprice guys, and what we're seeing here on the Jackson side is Jackson is starting to be repriced to the upside here. Lags, you there? You frozen? Oh, you're there. Okay.
Yeah,
you literally didn't blink for about 30 seconds, and I was like,
no,
what the hell is going on?
No, Mary, sorry.
But anyway, so it's like on the Jackson side, obviously he's on a winning streak here. He went from being lined competitively with, guys like Kamuela Kirk, he was near evens with, Charles Rosa, he was minus 200 against, to in fights that he should have been lined higher on, to now being lined closer with Ige. And then on the other side, you have Ige, who the market is kind of readjusting down after a 1-4 streak against mostly top level fighters. And, that's usually a train I don't want to get in front of, because my experience has been in the past that usually markets tend to overreact more on the guy winning and on the guy losing. They tend to overvalue the guy that's been winning and undervalue the guy that's been losing in these kind of repricing scenarios. And with that said, I bet Damon Jackson this week. It makes me physically uncomfortable, like, doing it. But the one thing I can't get past, like, look, I think every take I've seen on Ige and like strength competition is accurate. Like, I can't dispute it. He has fought much better guys. Is Damon Jackson Movsar Evloev? No, Movsar would wear Damon Jackson like a hat. I have very little doubt about that. Is he even Mirsad Bektic, even though he beat him? No, of course not. What I can't get past, though, is it's like, I just don't, throughout his career, I really don't like what I've seen from Ige when he's been on bottom. Like, you go back to like his fight with Kevin Aguilar, he wins that fight, close fight, but he wins it. Round 2 of that fight, Aguilar gets on top of him, pretty much rides him out for a full round. Kevin Aguilar, not much of a grappler. Fights Jordan Griffin. Jordan Griffin, he's a crafty sub game, but he's not really a control guy. Spends all of round 2 in that fight on his back. Ige in general, when he ends up on bottom, he just doesn't have technical get-ups. He either tries to play jiu-jitsu down there, or he gives up his back like he did in the Movsar fight. The thing with Movsar is, like, he's an excellent wrestler, but Movsar doesn't really try to control you from top position. He's more of a wrestle ride type guy. Like, you watch, he did the same thing with Akeem Dawodu, Suwo Choi. Whereas Damon, Damon is he's a good wrestler. I don't want to say very good wrestler. He's a good wrestler, mostly upper body stuff. But he has very, very strong jiu-jitsu. If Ige gives his back to Damon here, he's very likely to get a body triangle put in and just get ridden out for a round there. I even think Jackson subbing Ige is fairly live. I know Ige's a black belt, but the truth of the matter is he hasn't really fought anybody. I mean, the best submission grappler he's fought is probably like Korean Zombie, I guess. Like, so it's not like he's fighting anybody with like the submission grappling ability of Jackson. So like, I think a sub is live. Obviously the other side of things is I think Ige just coming out here and doing what he did to Gavin Tucker is very live, and just blitzing him and blasting him out of the water. I do think Ige hits pretty hard. Obviously he is very, very aggressive, and it wouldn't really surprise me if that happened. I think he's got a lot of KO equity, especially if Jackson fades late in this fight. I think Ige is live to finish him. But ultimately, I just look at it and I kind of feel like, I mean, Ige's fought way better competition. But the truth is, I think Jackson is a much better both wrestler and grappler than a lot of the guys that have held Ige down here. I think when you look at it, again, if one of them was to win a dominant 30-27, it's very clearly Jackson in my mind. Like, I would make Jackson a decent favorite if it goes to the cards. I'd be surprised if Ige won a decision. But with that said, I think both guys are live to finish. So it's like, I have 2 units on Jackson. I saw unders at plus 160. I'm considering putting 2 units on that as well, and just kind of taking a fade of Ige decision. It's like, look, if he proves me wrong and just completely stuffs out Jackson's grappling here, then I'm just completely wrong on my view of the fight. And like, that's fine. And I'll lose for it. But I think that's by far the least likely outcome in this fight. So, I mean, lock in profit either way on both the under and Jackson as a dog. So, I mean, that's kind of my view on this fight. What do you think, Lags?
I guess this is the first consensus pod play of the year. I am on the under as well at plus 155 for a unit. I mean, I more or less like, I get it from a market perspective, like why it's like what you're talking about, like readjusting the lines and whatnot. But I think more so the pick'em line kind of makes sense a little bit, just because, like, yes, while Jackson does have that dominant wrestling grappling upside, he's so wooden and hittable on the feet that, like, an Iga KO is definitely there on the cards.
He's like a baby deer. Like, he's so frail.
Yeah, and athleticism gap is huge here.
It is.
So I think the under at plus 155, I think that's a great play.
Yeah. I agree with you. And like Sean just said, David Jackson's getting flatlined. He might. It will make me very uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable throughout that entire Cachoeira Kirk fight, like, or throughout round one when he was just sitting there and striking with Kirk. I don't like the way Damon reacts to shots. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets KO'd. But again, I really feel like if he gets on top of Iga here, Iga's probably not getting up. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. And again, like next week, I will like take a bow and say I'm an asshole and I'm not going against my own rules again. But
we're under.
We're under. I'm there with that. But yeah, main event here, which is an interesting one. Sean Strickland replacing Kelvin Gastelum. I personally was more interested in Gastelum at the line and more interested in the fight then. But I'll throw it to you. What do you think of the fight line, Sean Strickland?
Well, from a betting perspective, obviously, yeah, I think Kelvin was probably a better betting opportunity. But I think for a fight, I love this fight. Like, I love Sean Strickland main events. I love watching him fight. Great opportunity. But in terms of betting, though, like, are people looking to bet Sean coming off of taking a lot of damage against Jared not that long ago, coming off a few weeks, like basically off the couch, 5-round fight? I guess the real big question for me is just involves cardio. I mean, that's really been his thing this whole run, really. So what does it look like in a 5-round fight against a guy who can push a pace, can push the volume? So I guess we'll see. But yeah, no strong thoughts here for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have never been the highest on Imavov. I think he's quite good while he's fresh, but I did think, the end of that Buckley fight was concerning to an alarming degree, to be honest. Obviously, he's a dangerous striker. He's a dangerous offensive grappler, but I think he lacks defense, both in the defensive grappling and in the stand-up. And, so he was someone I was kind of targeting here with Kelvin, because I kind of felt like, Kelvin's the kind of guy who, he's got his issues, but he'll come forward. And I didn't expect Kelvin to out-grapple him badly, but Kelvin will mix in 5-6 takedowns, wear on him, make him work, throw leg kicks, do attritional stuff. So unfortunately that got canceled. Honestly, like, I would bet Strickland at this line on a normal camp. He obviously brings more volume to the table. Imavov is huge for the division. He hasn't really dealt with much size parity in his career, but Strickland's 6'1", and he's got a 70. He's got a longer reach than Imavov. I don't even know if Imavov ever dealt with that. He's mostly fought small guys, Heidish, Buckley, Hawes, all guys who were kind of small for the division. And so I would be interested in Strickland normally, but it's like last month, Strickland fought on the last card of the year, right? That was a month ago. I know people are like, oh, Sean Strickland, this guy lives and breathes MMA. He's training all the time, but it's like, dude, this guy took a lot of damage in that fight. I know he didn't get finished, but he went to war with Jared Cannonier. He landed 155 strikes. Cannonier landed 145. He ate a ton of leg kicks. He ate a ton of flush headshots. No, he was never close to being finished in that fight. But the reality is they both took a beating in that fight. That was a month ago. He has since then, like, I very much doubt he was sparring hard for a couple weeks after that fight. Now he turns around here on 4 days' notice. He's taking it up at 205, so he clearly can't wait to wait. If you know about training, it's like Imavov's hitting his peak right now, and ordinarily he'd have to cut, but now he doesn't have to. He gets to just kind of chill, whereas Strickland hasn't even had a chance to peak. Like, I know that's mostly narrative, but it's like, it's a real thing. One of these guys has been training for 2 months for this fight and is peaking. One of them just fought a month ago, was on the couch doing whatever sparring he did, but certainly not gearing up for a fight, and now is turning around and requesting a weight class 20 pounds higher. I can't, even though under normal circumstances I'd be on Strickland here, I can't get behind it.
And I think on top of that, I saw it real quick. I don't know if you saw it. He was in a bike accident recently. Mm-hmm. Dirt bike accident.
That was years ago, unless he was in another one.
No, recently. No, like pretty recently. Like not like massive or anything, but like a little dirt bike incident.
I did not see it, but it's like all of those things, you know. I'm expecting the best version of Imavov, and I'm not expecting the best version of Sean Strickland. You know, I think it would be unfair to think of to expect the best version of Sean Strickland in this fight to him. So, to be honest, for his career's sake, I wish he didn't take the fight. I don't think it's a very, unless like his camp sees something and they're like, yo, you're going to fuck this guy up. I don't really see why do it. Thoughts on Imavov? No distance only equals no bet. I don't like that.
I mean, yeah. Well, I was gonna say first.
I mean, I don't even. Yeah. I think Strickland can finish him. To be honest, I don't think it's likely, but Strickland. If Strickland comes out and looks 90% of himself, you know, let's see, Strickland. Nah, Strickland's good. I mean, Imavov minus 120. I mean, it's not horrible, but I don't think it's like bulletproof. You know, yeah. I mean, I don't have a strong feeling about it. I'm rooting. Well, I don't know who I'm rooting for. I like Sean, but I root
for Sean.
I would like
a free fight losing streak.
I don't want to see that either, but I'd like a better number to fade him above. Like I like if Strickland comes out here and just volumes his ass up and like takes over down the stretch, we're never going to get the kind of number we saw in Kelvin again. Which maybe is for my benefit because maybe Imavov's legit and I just don't give him enough credit. But most legit guys don't drop rounds to Edmund Shabazian and Jordan Williams. Just saying. But we'll see what happens. Yeah,
I think the overs are probably good luck. Alternate overs 2.5, 3.5, minus 160 for the 2.5, minus 122 for the 3.5. I think you're just running into. I think you're just running to more into like, and I'm not on them, but I'm just saying you're running into more of a risk of maybe like the Strickland. How much has he been training and this and that off?
That's what I'm worried about. Because again, it's like I know he didn't like almost die against Jared, but he did eat a fair amount of like heavy headshots in that fight. You know,
and leg kicks.
And his face was pretty scuffed up at the end of that fight. So, but I don't hate. I'd prefer the over to any kind of finish prop on either side. I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bet it. You know, I'd look to bet it live more than anything else and see what kind of form Strickland's in before, you know, kind of like if Strickland is his normal self and all of this is much ado about nothing, then I like Strickland quite a bit in this fight. You know, if he comes out there round one, looks like vintage Strickland, I'll probably jump in live like fairly quickly. That's kind of my takeaway. But anyway, guys, you know, that's going to do it tonight. It's good to be back. It's been a crazy vacation. A lot of stuff going on. I'm glad it's over. You know, do we want to talk about the elephant in the room? But
where all money went.
Yeah, no. I don't even want to have like a whole conversation about that. No, I mean, we don't need to talk about it briefly. Yeah, obviously I was on a show with Lock of the Night for a bit last year. Didn't really know what he was doing. Guy's a fucking piece of shit. Bottom line. Everybody loves a comeback story, but I don't think there's any coming back from this. Yeah, you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on it.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
but hey, next week, big pay-per-view.
What's next week? Oh yeah, next week we do have a big pay-per-view. We got the UFC 283.
Yes,
in Brazil. And I heard, I can't say everything that I heard, but I did hear Anthony Smith is potentially on standby as a late notice replacement in the main event, and that someone may or may not be hurt. I didn't hear who, but I did hear someone may or may not be hurt. That is the information I have. I cannot say where I got it from. But
so is Glover raping Anthony Smith round 2?
Or is it going to be Anthony Smith, Jamal Hill? I don't know. Or neither. Or Glover versus Jamal Hill. I bet Glover and I bet Brandon Moreno. Just for everybody out there, lines will probably still be there next week, to be honest. I think the public's going to like, or maybe the smart, sharp people and I'm the public. I don't know. But I think I think the lines is going to move towards Hill's way or stay where it is. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
No. I hope everybody had a good Christmas, good New Year, and hope they're ready for this year of UFC betting.
Yeah, and we'll have a guest on the podcast next week. We're pumped to do this. Like I said, it's just going to be me and Lags going forward, but we got another profitable year coming your way. As usual, we got me, John, and MMA Fox, Lags at Danny_Lags. Guys, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Peace.